No, there's no way. Every time I get my hand next to it, you're messing with me. I swear you're messing with me. 2001 Toyota Echo 1.5 liter with 283,385 miles. Customer states engine's running badly and they barely made it here. And this is an emergency evening diagnosis because they're hoping to take this car to work tonight. And yeah, it runs a little rough, to be expected, because each time I've ever seen this car, it's been an ignition coil. And I actually picked up an ignition coil on the way home from work, 150 bucks. I was so confident that it's probably an ignition coil, but I may be wrong. We'll check it out. Whoa, 20 codes. Okay. P0300, random misfire, multiple misfire, P0304, cylinder 4 misfire. It's got some evap codes. Apparently we're going to have to make some more diagnostic videos on this car. Let me know what you want to see. P0420 codes seem to be very popular on my channel. P0420 codes get a lot of attention, and I really do need to make a couple more of those videos, some better ones. Vent control. So we've got some evap codes, and this, I think this is like repeating the list, showing you what's currently set, what's pending. These are all pending, and then down, no, there's a current one. Current codes, pending, current, and history codes. Okay. Guest appearance, Pooh Bear. Got some oil spillage here, probably from topping it off, not necessarily from an engine oil leak, because there's not really anything to leak oil in here unless this valve cover itself was actually damaged, or if you had a serious problem and there was oil chugging out from the spark plug holes. But at that point we are done. Obviously I've already put 2 Denso coils on this, and we had a code for cylinder 4 and a code for cylinder 2. So isn't that convenient? The exact cylinders that's already been had a coil replaced. I hope somebody watches this because I've got something special planned here. I'm taking off the exhaust manifold heat shield for no good reason other than this video. So I hope someone out there gains something from this. Alright. Exhaust manifold heat shield removed for no good reason other than this video. So at least one person out there watch this. Okay. So I brought a crayon with me. Light fixed up. I brought a crayon with me. I actually keep a box of crayons in the garage specifically for garage use and or coloring, drawing, whatever is needed at the time, right? So, old mechanics trick here. Take a crayon or some other waxy material. Okay, I'm going to take the camera here, get in here at the exhaust manifold. Whoa, I broke my crayon. Smear it on. I had a tire crayon also, but I figured that this is actually seems to be softer wax, so I think this will melt better. Hopefully we'll be able to see something cool here. And it's probably gonna smell waxy when she's driving to work. So Might have to go hot rod this car and burn all the wax off afterwards. Okay. Now my assistant, Technician K, is going to go get in the car and get ready to start it, and we're going to do a little test here. Technician K, go ahead, start it up. Technician K, shut it off. Thanks to Technician K there. As you can see, we have one cylinder that is running a little cooler than the others, and that would be cylinder 4. Ladies and gentlemen, you let me know what you want to see, okay? So I guess I have to do some actual diagnosis now. Wow, it's pretty tight. Wonder who put that on. Okay, Technician K, please start the engine. I'm gonna lift the coil up and see if I hear a spark. Uh-oh. Alright, Technician K, shut it off. Well, folks, we do have spark, and in the diagnostic world, that is code for it's got more problems. That's code for it's a little more serious. Okay, we have to do some actual diagnosis on this car for once. Technician K just asked me, why is that a bad thing? Well, I told her it means because we have spark, which is normally the first thing you check, it means that either we have a fuel injector problem or lack of fuel to that cylinder, or worst case scenario, we've got low compression on this high mileage engine. So honestly, with 283,000 miles, and the fact that I really kind of doubt it's the fuel injector, although I could test for that, I think I'm going to go get the compression gauge. So I'm going to demonstrate a power balance test or a cylinder kill test. We already know which cylinder it is. We already know which cylinder's not running, but I want to demonstrate this test, so it's going to help him later. Technician K, please start the engine. Okay, so this is the cylinder that is not firing. We already know that. I'm lifting it up And I can hear the spark from the coil, so I know that the coil is doing something. And I'm going to disconnect this one-handed Toyota connector. Notice how nothing changed, okay? Start it back up, Technician K. Did it die? Huh? Start it back up. Okay, so this is, why is it? Okay, so Technician K said that that was not her. Start it back up again, please. If I touch this connector, is the engine dying? No, there's no way. That was not you? Start it back up. Well, that's, no, there's no way. Every time I get my hand next to it, you're messing with me. I swear you're messing with me. Okay, start it back up. What is going on here? Try and start it, Technician K. Okay, I think I do know what's wrong with this though. Start it back up, go ahead. Look at that, it's like it just shut the key off or something. However, I think that this has a lot to do with our problem. It's out of gas. Well, I'm gonna have to put some gas in the tank. I don't think that the stalling is actually related to what we are diagnosing. I think that's total coincidence that it happened to run out of fuel right here. So, gonna have to add some fuel. And there's a light out here apparently. Okay, we're gonna have to add that to the list. We don't need gas to do a compression test. Wow. Come in and zoom in on this. I think we may have found the problem or a problem. Come on in here. Zoom in on that. I replaced these spark plugs not that long ago, surely. And that spark plug is already completely worn out. Spark plug is already completely worn out. And it appears to be covered in oil ash. Perhaps. So this cylinder may be burning oil. Okay. Okay, I'm going to disable the engine from starting now by disconnecting those other ignition coil connectors. And this one's a little wet with oil, so oil spillage. Got my compression tester on cylinder 4. Cylinder 4 is the cylinder that we know, like cylinder 4 is the one we know is misfiring for sure. So we're just going to go straight to a compression test and verify, is this engine even worth going any further? Okay, I am going to hold the throttle wide open with the cable here. Technician K, please crank the engine. Do not stop until I tell you, please. Go ahead. All right. Well, folks, that's a problem. I'm gonna hold the throttle wide open. Technician K, crank, please. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. I wonder if that cylinder is like super duper wet with oil. Actually, you know, I wonder if that cylinder was full of fuel and the rings were washed down with fuel because that compression came right back. Go ahead and crank it again. Wow. Okay, that's good. Stop. Okay, so with a result like that, seeing what we just saw, because I was holding the throttle wide open, I think maybe that there might have been some fuel, unburned fuel in that cylinder, causing low compression due to the rings cannot seal, especially on an old worn out cylinder. So just for curiosity's sake, if I put this spark plug back in here, is this now going to run semi-normally? We'll do it all in one take so you can see what's up. Okay, death grip tight plus quarter turn. I'm going to re-enable the engine, plug in the coils back in, and including cylinder 4. Technician K, start the engine. Still runs rough, so we still have some further diagnosis here. Ooh, well, don't forget it's still out of fuel. Okay, shut it off. No, it doesn't really run much better, although there is some heat coming off of that cylinder 4 wax now. It does not run satisfactory to me. It's still running, you know, like still idling rough. So we're going to continue with some further diagnosis. Look how much vapor's coming out of the exhaust, by the way. I think a lot of that is water and some of that is unburned fuel from that cylinder not running. So it's kind of, late summer, still warm. It was like 75 degrees Fahrenheit today. So the exhaust really should not be steamy and smoky in these weather conditions. Okay, it's just over a week later that I'm coming back to this car because I am extremely busy and I have not had a moment to get back to this car. But previously, I found low compression on cylinder 4. However, upon further compression testing, I held the throttle wide open and just cranked on it and cranked on it and cranked on it, and the compression ended up coming back, which was very strange. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. I'm removing the rest of the spark plugs. I'm going to remove all 4 spark plugs so we can do a compression test of all 4 cylinders and get a real health assessment of this engine. Coils themselves to pull the spark plugs out. Cylinder 1. Cylinder 2, totally worn out. I'll show you detail in a minute. Spark plugs are totally worn out. Wow, totally worn out. Okay. Crank it. Okay. All right. So all 4 spark plugs are removed. That's what it sounds like with 0 compression. This is the compression test on cylinder 1. Go ahead and crank it. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Well, folks, I don't know if it's the gauge that's having a problem or not. I'm going to hold the throttle wide open. Go ahead, do it again. Okay. So I'm gonna call that 135. Just over 135 on cylinder 1. Okay, this is cylinder 2 compression. And I'm holding the throttle wide open. Go ahead and crank it. Okay. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, why wouldn't the battery go dead? Why wouldn't the battery go dead, right? I've already been working on cars all day long and I don't even want to be doing this right now. So now the battery's dead and I can't even continue my tests. So I guess I've got to go get a jumper battery or something, or I'm going to slam this hood and snap the spark plugs off in the head and light this car on fire. Okay. Well, folks, I've got the jumper cables connected from my Yukon, which the battery was low on the Yukon, so I guess I needed to start it and run it for a little bit anyway. I've got the jumper cables connected to this car, the 2001 Echo. We're going to repeat the compression test. And yeah, that's usually how it goes when you're working for free after hours. That it's, you know, far more complicated than it needed to be. Okay, cylinder 1 compression test. Here we go. Technician K, go ahead and crank. Okay. Let's do that again. Go ahead, do it again. Okay. I'm really starting to think that this gauge I may not be able to trust. I'm gonna go to cylinder 2. This is always how it goes, ladies and gentlemen, when you're working after hours, working for free. Cylinder 2 compression test. Go ahead and crank it. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the gauge that's the problem or what. Cylinder 3, go ahead. Crank. Okay. Crank. Okay. Crank. So strange. Okay. Crank. Okay. Crank. Okay. What is going on here, ladies and gentlemen? Crank again. Okay. You know, I really think it's this compression gauge that is the problem. Cylinder 4 compression test again. Go ahead and crank. Wow, what is going on here? Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Yeah. I think at this point I may need to try a different compression gauge, because maybe the little Schrader valve that's in the end of this end, maybe the Schrader valve's having a problem, or maybe it's actually telling the truth. However, the gauge seems to be low sometimes, it seems to be high sometimes. Interestingly enough, cylinder 4, which is just a dead misfire, that one actually has the highest compression now. It went from having 55 psi to having 175 psi, which is pretty strange. If that were true, if the compression was abnormally high on that cylinder, we may have a valve train issue, and that's why I said maybe we need to take the valve cover off. But honestly, at this point, I'm going to suspect that we have an engine mechanical problem, possible engine failure. It's got almost 300,000 miles on it, so that wouldn't surprise me. I think I'm gonna wait until some better weather, some more daylight, or I'm gonna have to bring this car into the garage where I have better lighting and we're not out in the weather, and further revisit this. Okay. And a quick look, see what the spark plugs actually looked like. That's cylinder 1. Cylinder 2, super duper worn out. Cylinder 3 spark plug and cylinder 4. Okay, we are back about 2 weeks later. The customer made other arrangements upon the news that we may have some engine trouble. I finally have some time to do a more in-depth compression test on this engine. I tried to remove the starter relay here, but it broke and it's really stuck in there, so I'm not gonna mess with that. 20-year-old plastic, whatever. So I disconnected the fuel injectors and I found some oil in a couple of these connectors, so that may be a problem. And the reason I'm disconnecting the fuel injectors is because I want to disable fuel just in case that's affecting my compression test reading, because it was really weird how cylinder 4, the compression stayed at like 55 psi, and then I held the throttle open and just kept letting it go and breathe air and pump in and out, and it's like the compression shot up. So I don't know if that's a faulty gauge or not. I do have another gauge to compare with if that's a problem. I already loosened these plugs before, so that's why I didn't really have to struggle with them. I already tried to do this test a week ago, and the battery ended up dying, so I gave up because I just didn't have the time. So today, I fully charged and load tested this battery, and it actually failed the test. So that's another important aspect of doing a compression test. Make sure your battery is good. I have jumper cables that are not connected yet to another vehicle so that I can have stable, strong cranking when we're doing this test. We'll look at the spark plugs in a minute. They're totally worn out. Of course, I just saw a pine needle fall down that hole. How nice. Fir needle, get it right. It's a fir needle. These are fir needles. So now the engine's going to be blown up because we have a fir needle inside of it, but I guess we'll find out. All right, Technician K is jumping in the car now so we can do the compression test. Okay, Technician K, hold the gas pedal to the floor during the test. Okay, do we have wide open throttle? Full throttle. Cylinder 1 compression test. Go ahead and crank it. Okay. And this is exactly what I was talking about with the weak cranking. This battery, like I said, I fully charged and load tested this battery before doing this test. I just put this battery back in, and I just wanted to demonstrate the weak battery thing when you're doing a compression test. Okay, go ahead and do it again. Okay. Okay, now that was cranking pretty slow, pretty weak, and we're probably gonna have a low compression reading just from the slow cranking alone. So I'm gonna go plug this into my jumper you know, the other vehicle. Okay, just hooked up the jumper cables. Go ahead and crank it again. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Yeah, you know, to me, the pressure came up even higher and this engine sounds a little better, but I'm going to go start the other vehicle up so we have full battery voltage. Okay, again, I just wanted to show, make sure your battery is good, and if it's not good, make sure you're hooked up to a really good battery and or a vehicle that has a good battery and a good charging system. So I have a good battery and a good charging system going through these jumper cables to keep this compression test a little more accurate. Okay, so this is the actual compression test now on cylinder 1. Okay, go ahead and crank it. Okay, see, I'm not sure if I can trust this compression gauge because of the weird things it does like that. And that's why I grabbed a second gauge so I can compare after we're done. Okay, see, look at the difference just from having a good battery hooked up. Go ahead and do it again. Okay, do it again. Okay. Okay, we're gonna get 5 or 6 puffs there. I also like to just let it pump and pump and pump and see exactly how high it will really go. Switch cylinders. Okay, this is cylinder 2 compression test. Go ahead. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Gonna go to the next cylinder. Cylinder 3 compression test. Go ahead. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Do it again. Go ahead. Okay. See, right there, that's why I feel like I can't trust this gauge. It's like, why does it suddenly jump up like that? Okay. Cylinder 4 compression test. Go ahead. Okay. Interesting. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Stop. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Stop. Our suspect cylinder actually seems to have the highest compression. I'll have to compare the readings, but this cylinder number 4 was the one that's misfiring, and according to this compression test, cylinder 3 is low. So why isn't cylinder 3 the one that's dead on the thermal imager, etc.? There's the spark plugs. Totally. Cylinder 1 spark plug, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, and cylinder 4. Pretty worn out. They do not look good. Possibly some evidence of oil burning. I just got told by the customer a little while ago that apparently before this happened, the engine was going through 1.5 quarts of oil in a week. So that suggests we may have a serious engine oil burning problem, and this engine's just worn out. Okay, now I'm going to use a completely different compression gauge and verify the results, because I felt like the compression gauge I was using, I couldn't trust it from the results I was seeing, and a couple times I've used it in the past, I felt like it was doing weird stuff like that and I couldn't trust it. So good to have a second compression tester to compare with. I'll tell you this, I have been burned
by a bad compression gauge in the past, and that is why I'm including that in the video. I want to show you, maybe we're going to see something totally different from another gauge. Okay, this is cylinder 1 with a different gauge. Go ahead and crank it. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Wow, what is going on here? Okay, stop. I think this is the engine itself having a valve train issue, perhaps. I don't know about timing, like camshaft timing is probably not what's going on, because it does run, although I'd never tried to drive it to see if it's a complete lack of power. But I would suspect that with the very high miles, most likely the valve seats are completely worn out, and the valve clearance, the valve lash is probably 0, and those valves may be held off of their seats, which would cause the low compression and or the inconsistent compression readings. Another little trick when you're doing a compression test is, I've had her with the throttle open, right? If you ever suspect that you have a valve lash issue where you have inconsistent compression readings like that, do it at idle. Do the compression test with the closed throttle, less air being compressed, and that may show up a valve seat issue, because there's less air pushing that valve hard up against the valve seat, if that makes sense. Cylinder 2, go ahead and crank it. Okay. Go ahead and crank it. Okay. Crank. Okay. And again. Okay. Cylinder 3, go ahead. Okay. See, we're seeing the same results on this gauge, so this is definitely from the engine. Go ahead, crank it again. Okay. Do it one more time. Interesting. Okay. Previously, this cylinder was like struggling to make more than 75 or something like that. Cylinder 4, go ahead and crank it. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Inconsistent results really makes me think valve train more than piston and ring problem. We could put some oil down on the cylinders and see if there's any difference there, but I'm going to save that for later. At this point, we could do a running compression test, although I would have to find the tool to take the straight air valve out of the gauge and do a running compression test. I actually prefer to do a running compression test with the straight air in, and perhaps I'll demonstrate that. If you have the luxury, I would use a relative compression test with a lab scope, because that can really show up a valve issue or engine breathing problem. Okay, let go of the gas pedal. We're going to do a closed throttle compression test to see if there's any difference because of the valve seat thing that I mentioned earlier. Cylinder 1 closed throttle compression test. Go ahead and crank it. Okay. Again. Okay. Again. Wow, inconsistent results. Okay. Cylinder 2 closed throttle compression test. Go ahead and crank. Okay. Do it again. Okay. And again. Okay. Cylinder 3 closed throttle compression test. Go ahead and crank. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Do it again. Okay. Cylinder 4 closed throttle compression test. Go ahead and crank. Okay. Again. Okay. Interesting. Go ahead and do it again. Okay. So our misfire cylinder, again, according to the compression test, cylinder 3 should be our bad cylinder. But another thing I want you to keep in mind here is that the engine is cold right now, and temperature can make a huge difference on the valve clearance because this engine is non-adjustable. It does not have hydraulic lash adjusters. It has a fixed valve lash system, so you have to actually measure it, take something out, and put a shim. So things may change when the engine's hot. I'm going to put the spark plugs back in so we can do a running compression test now. So I'm putting the spark plugs back in so I can do the relative compression test with the lab scope while the engine is still cold, and then after I collect that data with the engine cold, I'm going to start up the engine and do a running compression test with the gauge so we can see what that looks like. I'm going to do it with the Schrader valve in, my preferred method, but I use both. Okay, some notes about my setup here for the relative compression test with the lab scope. I've got the 2 channels. You only really need 1 channel to do a quick relative compression test, but if you want to identify cylinders during the test, you're going to need a 2-channel scope at least. I've got a 10x probe connected on the IGT1 signal. This is a Toyota, so it uses IGT signal for the coil trigger on cylinder 1, and make sure that doesn't short out. And very important note on grounding, do not ever ground straight to the valve cover, or even the bolts can be risky. You have to make sure that the bolt goes all the way through the head so you're actually getting a ground. Even better would be to provide an actual jumper wire straight to the battery. Battery ground's always your best reference for ground. I've got the lab scope going. I'm going to get a screen recording going so we can put that on the screen all fancy like. Got some sort of bird making a noise out here. Alright, my oscilloscope settings got bumped. I'm going to get a screen recording so we can put it on the screen all fancy like. I'm going to go shut the jumper vehicle off. You'll see it on the lab scope. The voltage is going to drop. But I'm going to leave the jumper cables attached to the good vehicle battery so that I have a good cranking test. Okay, we see the battery voltage dropped there. I'm going to change my time base. Something a little more... Oops, wrong way. Probably 200 milliseconds, we'll try that. Okay, go ahead and crank it. Okay, hold on. My clamp popped off here. Always gotta be something. Okay. Go ahead and crank it again. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can zoom in on this and analyze that. Can't remember how to zoom on this thing. That's why I prefer the Pico. And I'm not seeing enough resolution on the voltage signal for this test. All right, folks, where did I leave off? We did the relative compression test with the lab scope, and some of you may say, well, I can't do a relative compression test with a lab scope because I don't have a fancy lab scope like the shop has. Well, I've got a little surprise for you. This little single channel lab scope just cost me $40 off of Amazon. Go ahead and crank it real quick. Okay, so that's battery voltage on the single channel lab scope. I've never used it before. It cost me $40 off of Amazon. The hump there where it's high, where it fails to pull down, is a bad cylinder. So that's if I was to able to add a second channel to this, I could tell you exactly which cylinder it was, just like I did on the other lab scope. However, I think that I will experiment at a later date where perhaps I will install this coil and have it jump a spark to ground through a jumper wire and introduce some interference on my single channel. So possibly I could get both the voltage reading and a little voltage spike to tell me what is cylinder 1. So further experimentation needed on that. We'll come back to that tool at a later date. The customer has decided to pull the plug on this car after I told them it needs an engine, and it's going to get towed away soon, so I'm actually in a hurry. I'm going to do the quick running compression test to show that, and then possibly pull the valve cover off and just see if it has a valve clearance issue or a camshaft issue like I was suspecting. All right, I'm going to do this quick before the tow truck gets here. I'm going to re-enable the engine, reconnect the fuel injector. Okay, this is going to be a running compression test with the Schrader valve in, and I'm not going to show you what it looks like with the Schrader valve out because I do not have time. Go ahead and start it. Oh, hold on, I forgot to plug in my hose. Go ahead and start it. Not wanting to start. All right, we may be out of luck here because remember the car was out of gas when it got here. Go ahead and try and start it. My jumper's not working. All right, I wiggled the jumper cables. Go ahead and try it again. Keep going. Yeah, we might be out of luck, folks, because it's out of gas. So unfortunately, I don't think I will be able to show the running compression test. And at this point, should I even bother pulling the valve cover off? Right? Might be a good idea to do that just before the tow truck tows it away. And I'm going to harvest these coils because these are new coils because they're going to fit the customer's other vehicle, the Scion. Harvest these, about $150 a piece for those Denso coils harvested. This bolt just break? No, okay, that's a bracket bolt. Okay, taking the last valve cover bolt off. I'm going to take this valve cover off real quick. Hopefully I got all the bolts. If not, I'm just gonna He-Man rip it off. It's probably gonna be nice and stuck too. Oh yeah! Why wouldn't it be? Yep. Sometimes you just got everything working against you when you're working on cars, but that's okay. It's part of it. What other parts should I harvest off of this car? I should probably take the mass airflow sensor, all sorts of stuff I should take off of this car before they take it away. It's like I said, it's gonna fit the customer's other car, the Scion. Okay, hopefully I can get this out of here. Need to pry it, rip it off, break my back, cut myself. Okay, I'm gonna have to go grab something to pry this off with. Okay, good old Leatherman. We're gonna give that a try. Probably snap the tip off it off. Actually, I don't even want to risk it. I don't want to damage it. Okay, got the screwdriver action here. I'm gonna find that bolt that I forgot, right? Okay, tow truck's on the way. We're speed running it, flat rating it. Yeah. There goes that little bracket. That's okay. And I do have a video of this engine a while ago. I think it's a short. Shows what it looked like before. I did bring some feeler gauges home so I could check the valve clearance, but honestly I don't have the time at this moment. Nothing looks super duper terrible. Yeah, I think we're just gonna Okay, unfortunately I'm out of time for today. I brought some feeler gauges with me to check the valve clearance and confirm that we maybe had a valve seat issue, worn valve seats, and a lack of valve lash, etc. But I'm out of time. Tow truck's on its way to tow this car away. They're going to scrap it. Used engine cost about $700, middle range. So it could be fixed, but the car is not in that great a shape, so we're not going to worry about it. And I'm going to call this done, and maybe in the future we'll show that running compression test and some further testing.